a conflict for a while now, and surrounding that conflict. It's been about Democratic Republic of Congo, that is RC, that has had its own kind of internal conflict. Some people say, well, it's a miniature civil war of some kind, which, of course, experts home and abroad now say is directly or indirectly connected to the mineral deposits, in which, of course, that country, as we know, is very rich, all right, which even the West is very much interested in. But the question in between, however, is how is it that Rwanda, a country in eastern part of Africa, is now embroiled in all of these? And what are the implications for, well, continental collaboration, or if you like, that sort of interaction of some kind, business, trade, diplomacy, politics, and what have you, amongst African countries? As it stands today, we understand that Rwanda, under President Paul Kagame, has pulled out of the regional bloc, and this is some sort of developing story. But again, the implications are quite significant. Therefore, want to beat some of these issues into context this morning, and we're joined by someone who has a handle on these developments to help us create some context real quick. Dr. Sule Babayo is Department of Political and Administrative Studies, National University of Lesotho. He joins us this morning live via Zoom. Dr. Babayo, I would like to say a big thank you to you for jumping on this conversation today.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to say a very good morning to all.
So my colleague Queen Ajaba and I will spend the next 20 to 25 minutes chit-chatting with you about this issue. Now, there are people who say that, first of all, well, Rwanda is in East Africa, unlike the DRC. How is it that we are having a conversation regarding a conflict on the ground in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and then it's as if we can't have a totality of that conversation without featuring, so to speak, Rwanda under Paul Kagame? Help our viewers understand what exactly is going on.
Okay, thank you very much. I think it is critical when you talk of the crisis in the Democratic Republic of Congo to reflect to some historical antecedent that led to the current situation of the conflict. One is we shouldn't forget that the state of Congo is one of the most volatile and one of the most brutalized and tortured by the colonialists historically. In essence, it is arguably agreed that there is no African country that was colonized brutally, that suffered massacre, that suffered all forms of inhuman treatment in the hands of the wide European colonialists like the Congo under what they call the Leopold of Belgium. It was reported by some empirical facts that more than 2 million Congolese were massacred and assassinated in the most brutal way during colonialism by such people. And after that, another issue is that Congo is also believed to be the most endowed state in Africa in terms of mineral resources, because the cobalt, the zinc, the lithium, and other valuable and precious mineral resources and stones that are used in order to manufacture something like the car battery, electric car, mobile phones, iPhones, computers, and basically all valuable electronics. Congo has the highest deposit in Africa, and also probably one of the most endowed and blessed in terms of this deposit across the world. And when the Congolese decided that they no longer want the colonialists to stay, they did something very terrible, which many historians in Africa always used to replay with a sober mood. What have they done? They almost destroyed all the infrastructure that they mounted during colonialism, saying that since you are not matured enough to rule yourself and you are telling us to go, you are chasing us away, that means you don't need our infrastructure. This was despite all the huge resources extracted free of charge by the Belgian colonialists, despite the massacre of over 2 million Congolese. They still went ahead to destroy the infrastructure and said, okay, you are free, you can go. After that, what happened next was that one of the most patriotic African leaders, known as Patrice Lumumba, emerged from that same Congo, who said that, look, Africa is for Africans and the resources of Congo is for Congo people. So we don't want you. Please, you may wish to leave. Because of that, they connived with some unpatriotic Congolese and massacred him. They assassinated him in a most way that when you see it, you will weep because they embarrassed him, they disgraced him, they displayed him before the public, torturing him, insulting him, abusing him, beating him, and all sort of inhuman treatment that you can't even do to an animal, done to a president of a country and a rich country for that matter. Then later on, they hacked him into pieces and then burn his remains, just as a deterrence, as an example against other African leaders that want to rebel. Now, having said that, we have seen the background of the Congo as a state that right from day one, it was not an easy ride for a Congo to be a state. Now, what happened next? What happened next was, as rightly mentioned, the Congolese crisis has four dimensions. It has local dimension, something like a miniature civil war, as you said. It also has a regional dimension. It has an international dimension affecting two countries, Rwanda and Congo. Then it has a multi-regional dimension affecting some countries from Central Africa, from East Africa, and from South Africa. Then it has an overall global dimension affecting many countries, including the Western interests. Now, how did that came into being? This came into being by the civil war in Rwanda, that famous civil war between or genocide between the Tutsis and the Hutus. We all know that what happened in Rwanda was that the Hutus are the majority, the Tutsis were the majority. So the Hutus utilized the opportunity of power and almost embarked on a genocide motive against the Tutsis. Unfortunately, they succeeded almost in doing that, but some part of the eastern Rwanda, where the majority of the Tutsis resided, there were some Hutus entrapped there. So these Hutus decided to cross over to Democratic Republic of Congo in order to escape reprisal attack from the Tutsis that were being massacred mercilessly by the Hutus inside Rwanda. Now, these Hutus that now cross over to some part of Congo settled down there. Now, when the rebel movement of President Paul Kagame succeeded in forming a government in Rwanda, the first thing he did was to support the former president of Democratic Republic of Congo, that's Laurent Kabila, to emerge as the president of Congo on the ground that there is going to be a unity among them in such a way that Laurent Kabila gave an opportunity for Paul Kagame, that is Rwanda, to chase these Hutus that are residing in the eastern part of Congo, because according to Paul Kagame and Rwanda, if these Hutus are still residing in the eastern part of Congo, Rwanda will not be peaceful because they may organize a movement, a rebel, and then come back and hunt back Rwanda, and it is long-lasting peace that it is building under Paul Kagame. So with the cooperation of Laurent Kabila and the cooperation of DRC Congo, even when it was Zaire, before it was renamed DRC Congo, they succeeded in chasing these Hutus to the extent that, as you mentioned, a miniature civil war continued in disguise in Rwanda, but across the border of Congo. In other words, the conflict between Hutu and Tutsi spill over up to the borders of Congo in the eastern part, where they call it the eastern and southern Kivu, and the Goma, the recent town where such conflict broke out recently, as we are discussing. But later, it turned out otherwise. There was a fallout between Paul Kagame and Laurent Kabila, and the Laurent Kabila withdrew his support to the Paul Kagame against the Hutus, and instead he turned to the government, and then turned back to the Hutus and supported them. So now, when such crisis broke out, the remnant of the Hutus that are in the eastern part of Congo that wanted to take back some
pronged, multi-dimensional, and it just appears to be escalating on several fronts with every passing day. But hopefully we are able to rejoin Dr. Sule shortly so we can continue this conversation. But all of this, again, for obvious reasons, still points to the development or otherwise of Africa as a continent. There are those who say for Africa to move forward, to make progress, take one step forward in practical terms on whatever front it is, there's got to be that extrication from Western influences. For example, instances that readily come to mind, Niger Republic, Burkina Faso, Mali, and the likes. Of course, these three countries, particularly Burkina Faso and Mali, have said enough with the West, especially with France, for instance. The question is, are other countries able to say the same? Because you still find footprints, so to speak, of the West across different countries on this continent, which many experts and analysts have said obviously make it very visible that, well, the continent has not been able to win itself from the influences of the global West. Let's take a quick break. When we return, we'll continue this conversation. Do stay with us, everyone. All right, we understand Dr. Babayo Sule has rejoined us now. Let's take it up from where we left off. Babayo Sule, I want us to pivot a little with this conversation. First of all, thank you for that narrative that you were able to establish just a while ago. Let's talk about quickly the Western influence before we domesticate this conversation this morning. Of course, we've talked about the humongous deposit of mineral resources, all right, in the DRC. How is it that these countries are not able to extricate themselves from the influences of the West? I mean, these are natural resources. They are taken raw from the ground in Africa, brought back, refined, and of course you have the main products and the byproducts and all of that. So how inhibited, or if you like, how disadvantaged are African countries in this regard?
I often said that one of the reasons why Africa is not progressing is not because we are black, it's not because we are poor, it's not because we are unintelligent, but rather it is because of the abundant mineral resources that is causing us a huge disaster from the international interest. Because if you look at Congo, there is no reason whatsoever why DRC will not be so rich because of the endowment of mineral resources. But the Western interests are now the Chinese. Because of recent, the Chinese have joined all over where there is a mineral resources because of the improvement in the industrialization. They have now joined conflict everywhere. Whenever you have a resources, they will always be there in order to grab their share because of the massive industrialization they are now experiencing globally, and because of the market that they are enjoying. So the issue and the problem is that the international communities, especially it is alleged that the US and the France and other European countries are involved because they want to continue to arm what we call the warlords. They establish and create what we call the warlord. Who are these warlords? It's some group of rebels that are armed with sophisticated weapons, sometimes more than the ammunition that the government security personnel are carrying, so that they will continue to occupy some strategic place of the minerals. While you are busy fighting and killing each other, they are busy exploiting the mineral resources because they don't want to buy. Since if you want to buy, it's a very expensive mineral resources, and they cannot do most of their industries that produce valuable and expensive materials relied on such mineral resources, and they want to make a huge profit. So because of that, they now prepare they find it is very cheaper to embark on illegal mining than to follow the normal procedure and get license. Because if you get license, you need to pay royalties, you need to pay back what you are exploiting, what you are enjoying. But if you arm some few group of rebels, you hardly pay 5% of what you are supposed to pay. All that you need to give them is some few dollars, a few more dollars, and some weapons, and then they will feel that they are on top of the wall. They will continue to occupy the territory. It's not only in DRC Congo, as we mentioned, Africa. There are many countries in Africa like Sudan, in Angola, in Somalia, in Nigeria, Niger Republic, Mali, Burkina Faso, Ivory Coast, where they all have this crisis. It all turns into one issue, all the same thing. It is all about where, for example, in Nigeria now, there was a research we undertook, and then we investigated this banditry. To our surprise, it is more of illegal mining than the real bandit. It is more than what the eye can see. All those that we interviewed across all the facets, including the academics, including members of the community, including security personnel, including NGOs, including government officials, they all compares that there is an invisible hand supporting this banditry because of illegal mining, because that cobalt, that zinc, that lithium, californium that are in Democratic Republic of Congo are also obtained in all parts of northern Nigeria, spread in northeast, northwest, north central. And so the bandits are armed and supported indirectly and invisibly by the conflict entrepreneurs, so that they ostracize the communities that are living within the enclave where these resources were bestowed or endowed, so that the communities will not even bear witness to what is happening and the illegal mining and extraction. Even last 3 weeks, some Chinese, I think, were taken to the court in Nigeria and they were found guilty and they were sentenced into a prison, I think, for 4 years or 6 years with some fine because of their involvement in illegal mining in Nasarawa State. Even in the DRC, many Chinese and other foreigners were also apprehended stealing precious mineral resources. So they are foiling the crisis. So one of the reasons why Africa is facing this excessive and seemingly rampant continuous insecurity is because of the interest of these global foreign companies and foreign countries, because of the endowment. They don't want us to settle down to have a critical thinking of how to explore our resources, how to process it into a finished good, because if we do that, we will become rich, they will become poor. But rather, if they occupied us fighting each other, they will continue to cut away with the resources while we continue to fight each other in the name of ethnic, religious, regional, and other nomenclatures of communal clashes. So, of course, we cannot do away with the involvement of the international communities. It is making us always to kill each other, even though I will have to acknowledge and also praise the role of the US in terms of passing a foreign policy law that henceforth they will not be buying mineral resources from conflict-ridden areas, even though it is also hypocritical because it will be full of double standard. They may say that, and at the end of the day, they will go through the back door and still buy if they have the interest. Look at just what is happening now in Syria. A person that is labeled as the most wanted top terrorist in the world took over power and is now being romanced by the US. It is all about national interest. That is all.
In multiple regional players. It has drawn in a lot of players. And then, like you mentioned, activities, economic activities, investment, trade has been disrupted. Is there a way we can broker peace, particularly given the complexities of these issues? Maybe by international communities and all of that.
Well, I'm sorry, pardon. I cannot grasp the full question, please, because of the some low.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Will you kindly please repeat the question
Okay,
for me?
okay. So I was asking, I said, this conflict has drawn in multiple regional players. And it has also disrupted trade and economic activities, like you mentioned. I'm asking, how can we broker peace given the complexities of these, issues? Maybe from international communities, basically, how do we resolve to peace?
Well, thank you very much. Definitely, the international community is not interested in ending the conflict. Even some African countries are not interested in ending the conflict. For example, just take Rwanda. Rwanda is not interested in ending the conflict because to Rwanda, it is all about supporting the Tutsi that cross, or I mean the Hutu, yes, the Tutsi that crossed over to Democratic Republic. To Rwanda, it is more of ethnic than resources. Therefore, Rwanda is only interested if Democratic Republic of Congo will cede some part of its national sovereignty by allowing some ethnic group in Rwanda to continue to exist and occupy some positions, even though they are said to be indigenous Congolese, some of them. So therefore, the international community is not interested in bringing an end to the conflict. Other parties are not also interested. The only way to bring an end to this conflict is about good governance. If we have good governance and a patriotic leadership that can inculcate a sense of national patriotism to the citizens, we can easily bring an end to such a conflict. For example, it is not that there are no conflicts across other countries of the world. If you go to the Germany, for example, there are multiple ethnic groups. Some people will think that Germany is just a homogeneous state. It was not. It was a combination of more than 39 independent states. After the Napoleonic adventure in Europe that caused havoc, they now decided that they need to form one strong country that can challenge such kind of state under Napoleon that will not brutalize and torture Europe. So about 39 states under Prussia were now persuaded to form what we call Germany today. The nature of federalism in Germany is such that even the uniforms of police officers and customs from one state differ from another. They have their own internal divergences and complexities. But because of the sound economy and national patriotism, you hardly had such conflict from them. If you go to Malaysia, for example, there is a very bitter division between the Malays, the Indians, and the Chinese. But because of the low rate of unemployment, because of the high rate of employment, because of a high level of equality, because of low rate of poverty, because of high level of literacy, I started my PhD there. In Malaysia, you will find that the Malay will sit in one isolated corner. You will
Dr.
find the
Sule,
Indians
Dr. Sule, I'm afraid we will need to just pause this conversation here for a minute, and we're going to continue with you to now talk about the African Union, for example. What exactly should a body like the African Union, I mean, that is continental, all right, doing about conflicts like this? Today is DRC and Rwanda. Tomorrow is another country. I mean, like you said, it's a continent-wide phenomenon we have come to find. We want to talk about all that with you when we return from this break.